Hey everybody, good morning. We'll get started in just a few minutes. We'll give maybe a couple of more minutes for people to join, and then we'll get started. So I think we are ready to get started. Gail, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I know there are people joining from all the different parts of the country, so I wanted to welcome you and thank you so much for taking time to be with us here today. It's a beautiful day outside, both in the East Coast and West Coast. I assume I am in California. I just came from East Coast yesterday and it was absolutely freezing there. My bones are still thawing from the cold, so which I'm not used to at all. But anyways, thank you so much for investing your time in learning and growing, especially if you're a first-time PTA or PTO president. My name is Neelam Chakrabarty, and I am the CEO and founder of Oroola. I have been with my PTO at middle school and high school in various positions. I mostly got involved when my daughter started in middle school. Prior to that, my kids were in private school, so really I didn't know much about PTO when I when I took out this onerous task. And when I first time became the president, I was, oh my gosh, this is so much more complex than I thought. And as I learned through the years, I realized, what a wonderful job this organization does and how much time and effort they put in managing this. So that has been my biggest inspiration in starting my company. I have, played a lot of different roles in my business or professional background. I am a technology and marketing executive, and I have used some of the skills that I can bring my professional skills into this, into solving some of the problems that PTO and PTA leaders face. I'm also excited that today I have with me Gail Mojica. Gail has a lot of experience with PTAs. She has got kids in all the different grade levels, and she's been involved with them for several years. And I will, of course, let Gail introduce herself. All right, so Gail, I'm gonna hand over the control to you.
Okay. Ooh, it looks like I am in control, and so I'm going to put, let's see if I can get this, sorry, wrong view. Yeah. I'm going to put the presentation in full screen mode, and before we jump into the agenda, I'll just introduce myself real quick. Yeah, my name is Gail Mojica. I do live in California right now, but just moved here a couple of years ago. Lived in Texas for quite a long time, and then have also spent time in Virginia, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, and some other fun places around the world due to family job moves and such. So I've gotten the great opportunity to be part of PTAs, PTOs, parent councils, home and school associations, and just about any other kind of alphabet soup abbreviation combo that one can come up with regarding PTAs and PTOs. As Neelam mentioned, I do have kids right now in elementary school. I have a 3rd grade son. I have an 8th grade daughter, and then I also have a 10th grade daughter as well. So I have kids in all the different school levels, or I have gone through all of the different school levels, including the different including pre-K as well. And I've helped out at different levels or different levels of engagement at each of the different schools my kids have been on. And it's been, I like change and learning different things. And so I've gotten a chance to learn a lot of different things about how PTAs, PTOs, and whatever else you want to call these wonderful organizations. I've learned a lot over the years about how to help out with that. And I love this little quote from Thor over to the left of "I have much to learn, I know that," because however long one has been involved in PTAs or PTOs, you can always learn more, and you can always do something a little bit differently. So you can see on the screen some of the types of things that we're going to go through today. And I would recommend, if you have any questions at any point in time, you can use the little Q&A tool on the Zoom webinar. It says Q&A, and you can ask a question there, or if something pops up and you need to comment to something to Neelam or myself, then you can put on the chat window as well. We're going to go through some pretty basic things here, and and then we'll dive in a little bit further on more fun specifics and what to do and such. But the big thing is to step back and think about, okay, what is a parent-teacher organization or a parent-teacher association? And it really is this representative voice for parents and teachers together in the leadership of a school. It's your venue for influencing what extra programs and such can happen at school. So the interesting question that has come up a lot, and particularly for me when I was first moving around between these different organizations, I'd hear PTO, PTA, PTSA, whatever. And the big question I always had was, what's the difference? Why are we calling these things all these different items? And the really big definitive difference between really any kind of acronym versus PTA is whether it is part of the national PTA organization. There's if you're a parent-teacher association and using that terminology, you are part of that, or you are only allowed to use that terminology if you're part of the national PTA organization. And basically, if you're not using that acronym, then you are, you're an independent organization. And there are pros and cons to both, and it really just depends on what is going on in your school and how this works best for you. But the PTA, it is very structured. There are to a certain, it's not, they're not dictating everything that you might want to do every minute of the day, but there are rules. I mean, there are dues that are required. There are some well-established rules, guidelines, bylaws, etc. They do require you to obtain taxes exempt status, which we'll talk about in a second. They do require insurance. But they also, to kind of go along with all of these things, they also provide a wealth of support and tools and documentation and things like that that you can utilize as part of your PTA. The other thing that the National PTA organization supplies is this piece of a built-in network. And we'll discuss that in just a second. The PTOs, on the other hand, you really can make things up as you feel that is best for your school. You don't really have to have, insurance, although we highly recommend it. You don't have to have tax exempt status. You don't have to have some of these other things. And so you get a lot of flexibility. And that's really the main difference between PTA and really any of the other organizational titles. Okay, so again, talking about the PTA, what is this national PTA organization? And they have a fabulous website. You can go and check it out and see. They are the largest volunteer child advocacy organization, and there are or around 25,000 PTAs worldwide. The great thing that our PTA at my current elementary school has really emphasized and found is this network and being able to meet up with different schools in the same kind of geographic area where you can kind of learn from one another and talk about different things impacting your area. And then so you can both learn kind of nitty-gritty things to do and creative ideas about how to meet some of those goals that we talked about on that early slide, but also you can kind of bubble up some major issues that you want to kind of push up towards the district or state or even national level. And the PTA, you know, it's got a pretty good lobbying arm and has a strong voice, both at the you know, individual state levels and at the federal level as well. So, those are some, you know, very specific things that you get from being part of the larger national PTA organization. But so if you want to be, you know, a PTO and you don't have a set PTA at your school, or actually even if you want to become part of the national PTA organization, these are some of the basic things that you need to set up, you know, or that you should set up as you work through creation of your PTA and a PTO. You want to form a board of people. You know, I've talked to some people that have tried to basically be the PTO themselves, you know, a one-person show, and you really need a couple of people at the very least to join in this with you, and, you know, and be your support system, and share the load, and also to be able to figure out how to pass this down, because at some point you do move on to the next school. Your kids, you know, move out of a certain school, and you want, you know, to continue the organization as you move along. You want to register as nonprofit and tax exempt with the IRS and obtain an employer identification number. And we've got some steps on a later slide that we'll go through, and then you can, you know, see in more detail. You want to have a bank account, because if you're raising money or even just, you know, buying things and such, you need to have a way to not just, you know, hold it in a cash box at your house. And you want to have full transparency and such, and thus have a couple of at least two signees on that bank account to make sure that you are you know, that you've got transparency, and you know, and are okay in an audit situation and things like that. You need rules. And you also need, you know, like I said, you need to get some people involved to help you take on some tasks and events. And we're going to talk more about a lot of these, actually almost all of these things over the next few minutes. You want to reach out and schedule monthly meetings that other people can join in. And you want to figure out ways to communicate to the families at your school. And you absolutely have to include your principals, maybe some teachers and staff as well, because it's not, in most places, a PTO is not just a parent organization. You've got to, you know, to be able to do things at the school and to be able to help impact what's happening at school, you've got to have buy-in and input and approvals from the parents and staff at the school as well. So that's a critical factor that I don't think can be emphasized enough. And if you're at a parochial school, you want to have your priest or religious lead or whatnot to be involved and have buy-in also, as I've experienced before sending my kids to parochial schools in the past. So everyone would recognize that any PTO is going to be a nonprofit. You know, we're not, PTOs are not businesses. Nobody's trying to make a buck from being part of the PTO. And so you know, all your profits, you do want to go back. You want that little bank account to gain a little bit of money that can be used on programs and such for your kids. And one of the important things for this is to gain some tax exempt status. Actually, there's as a PTO, if you are purchasing items for your school to be used at your school, by being a nonprofit, very often organizations will skip the tax for you. You know, you can get tax deductible contributions. You still have to file taxes, and if you have state taxes, you know, you will also need to get a tax exempt status for, you know, for your particular state as well. But filing for tax exempt status and being a nonprofit, there is some paperwork involved. There's this wonderful Form 1023 for the IRS, but having this in place really helps ensure that the money that you are spending or raising for your school can be spent completely at your school and doesn't get eaten away by taxes. So there are steps and specific forms that you need to file for this. And we've actually got some links at the end of this presentation that we will share out so that you can go through those and you know, and get the steps online on how to get this status. It is highly helpful and a very important paperwork to do. Being a nonprofit, you also have to have bylaws set up. And, you know, and you'll hear about bylaws and parliamentary procedure and rules and things like that. There are rules that you have to put in place to be kind of an official nonprofit. There are rules that are in that you have to put in place to kind of satisfy both being an independent PTO or being part of the national PTA organization. If you're part of the national PTA organization, if you're a PTA, they have sets of example bylaws and such that you can look and follow. And the bylaws are really just high-level rules of engagement. You know, it defines you know, what it is that, what kinds of officers you're going to have, what it is that needs to be done by the PTO, and what it is that you're going to, what kind of rules you're going to follow in terms of making decisions and such. And there are lots of templates and ideas about this online, but they do need to be approved, and they should be reviewed annually and updated every 2 to 3 years. But it's almost to set in place a structure and a format that you can use going on. And they don't have to be hugely complicated. Most PTO bylaws are not hugely complicated. You don't have to have a legal degree to figure these things out and such. But it just sets a framework. And it's also, again, very good to have this be something that you run through with the principal or staff members at your school to make sure that they're bought into them as well and that they can help follow some of these things. You know, you very often, you know, you can enter into creating an organization, and you know, and the people that you're involved with at that point in time, y'all have all got the same idea and plan, and everything is working wonderfully. But sooner or later, over the course of years, some sort of situation is going to pop up, and it's always good to have rules written down and that have been approved and voted on that, you know, you can go back to and say, okay, you know, let's use this to help us, you know, make a decision or figure out how to deal with a sticky situation. There we go. And then standing rules are also important to have, and they're kind of like the next level of detail. They're, you know, you've got your bylaws and they're high level, and those, you know, really set the context for your organization. And then the standing rules, they're basically anything else not covered by the bylaws. You know, there are duties of committee chairs, there are duties of the officers, you know, they really just kind of go down the next level of detail. You don't need stacks and stacks of binders like this poor lady on the left-hand side of the screen has got, but they just give you a good sense of what you need to cover in terms of status. Oops, sorry about that. And then we always hear about parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order, and it's not Robert Redford and it's not Robert Downey Jr., and it's not scary either. Robert's Rules of Order are just the very simple things that you do in meetings and in the PTO and parent council and PTA meetings that I've been a part of. Most of what it's about is having an agenda, you know, just running through the agenda, hopefully sequentially, or asking for people to let you go out of order as needed, but really just being respectful, letting people talk, making sure that the agenda, that the meeting is officially started and adjourned at the end. And then the big part that is always fun is the motion, second, and then all in favor voting. And that's really just to make sure that if something comes up and people want to do something or make a change or whatnot, that everyone has a voice, and also that it's very clear what you're voting on. So, you know, we would like, you know, we want to have a motion to approve a monetary expenditure. Somebody else has to second that motion in order for it to be called for a vote, and then all in favor and all opposed. And that's really what Robert's Rules of Order are all about. It always, people get very nervous, I think, about parliamentary procedure, and it's really just about making things run smoothly in a meeting. So who are your big key people? Who are the big key people that you have to have in your PTA or PTO? And we basically have a set of about 6 different areas. And the first 3 are really, you can't move forward unless you have these 3 roles that we have on the screen: president, treasurer, and secretary. And the president, you know, is the president. They're presider, they're the official contact, they're a signer of checks and contracts and authorizations for payments. And the treasurer, you know, is what a treasurer does. You've got the budget, you present the budget, you present what the monetary outlays, like the checks that have been written and such, to the overall association. You make sure the taxes are done, things like that. And then the secretary takes all the minutes, because you have to have records of what has gone on at both small board meetings and larger meetings for the general PTO population. And also the secretary co-signs formal papers with the president, so that you've always got this little set of checks and balances. But the president, treasurer, and secretary, you really have to have those 3 roles to be able to move forward as a PTO. And then the other ones that we also see as incredibly important are communications. Actually, this is the role that I'm currently have at my son's elementary school, is communications, where you're handling all the outbound communications from the PTO, and that can include newsletters, flyers, bulletin boards at the school, helping the principal get his newsletter out, things like that. Fundraising, if you are looking to build up money for specific events at school or programs at school and such, it is helpful to have a VP of fundraising that is slightly separate from the treasurer. I mean, some people say, oh, well, they're both money. It really does help to have somebody that is kind of analytically going through the money as a treasurer, and somebody else that's looking at, okay, how are we going to get that money to come in, and is reaching out to the school population, working with leaders of events and such, and also working with local businesses. The other area that fundraising can really focus on, and is can be just a wonderful way to get some money in without doing too much, is corporate matching, and making sure that parents are following through and submitting their PTA donation information to the companies that they work with, because many companies will match those contributions to a nonprofit. So again, go back to your nonprofit tax exempt status. Many companies will, if a parent or anybody has said, okay, I've given $100 to my school's PTA, many companies will give $100 themselves as well. But having somebody that is kind of following through on that is well worth the effort. And then you've got your committee chairs, and those can be chairs for specific events. Your room parent coordinator. Room parents are the parents that volunteer to help out specific teachers, with volunteer coordination and things like that. And it helps to have somebody that is coordinating with with all the room parents. If you're selling spiritware or anything like that, it helps to have somebody that is running the kind of the PTA store. And so, but the types of committee chairs that you have really is based on the types of events and things that you do at your school. And make sure you show them some love, because sometimes those event chairs can be as much work as some of the other PTA roles. And so those are some of the kind of the critical things that you need to do to set up your PTA and have a good, healthy organization.
Oops, Gail, looks like we lost you there a little bit. Sorry about that. Just at the fat end of her part, we lost Gail, but I think that's fine, because I think it's my turn to take on from here. But so Gail did walk you through some of the basics, what you need to do to form your PTO and how do you run it, how do you run the meetings, etc. I'm going to walk you through what community engagement looks like. So as Gail mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, that community engagement is one of the critical and very important aspects of your role. And what does community engagement mean, actually? It means, involving not only your parents and teachers and maybe students, if you are a PTSA, but even local businesses or parents whose students have passed, their experience now at your school, and other community members. And there's several things that PTO does to really engage the community. One of them is fundraising, right? Fundraising is your avenue to, get money for doing some of the fun stuff so that you can bring all these different community members together. Now, there are different types of fundraisings. There are these, as you can see in the screen, there's a direct fundraising where you're just going to the parents or businesses or corporations and asking them for money. This usually typically happens, at least the schools that I have been associated with, they do at the beginning of the year and then maybe somewhere again in the middle of the year. So you just send out direct donation requests or envelopes or whatever and say, hey, we are looking to fundraise, so please donate, and they will either have suggested amounts or they will have some kind of premium packages and so on and so forth. The other smaller way is just running coin drives, or you know them as penny wars probably. Have a bottle or some container and ask everybody to put in their pennies, find loose change in your sofa or under the rug or whatever, and then donate them. I know some schools actually make a lot of money through coin drive, so it could be worth your time just investing or just sending out this or running this campaign to collect some of the donation. And then there is also employee gift matching, which incidentally actually, or unfortunately, is not taken much into consideration, but it could become a big part of your fundraising effort, because a lot of companies, big and small, do match donations. And I was reading a statistic the other day that there is $10 billion that is left out because the employees will not claim them, either because they do not know about the gift matching options, or the paperwork is hard, or they just don't know if their employer matches gifts or not. So we have a list on our website of 1,000+ employers who do gift matching, and then it is worth the while to share that list with your schools and make them aware that this is one of the options to raise funds for your school. The second option is sales-based. So you're selling a lot of stuff here, right? You're having bake sales, you're selling magazines, food items, and anything and everything that you can find. There are a lot of companies who have specific fundraiser items, like there is Yankee Candle, there are cookie dough items, there are false bulbs, for planting and seeds and so on and so forth. And many schools also have their own spiritware, which they sell to generate some money for their school. So yeah, there are a lot of different things that you can do. it works for some it doesn't work. You know, many PTOs don't like to send kids from door to door, things like that. But then some also like it that the kids learn some skills about how to talk to strangers or how to, you know, fundraise and things like that. So there are pros and cons in that. The third one is events-based. Events-based is, again, this is, I think, the biggest category of fundraising is there because there are endless events that you can organize to raise funds. But the PTA organization, as well as a general notion, is that we really don't want PTOs to just be fundraising and organize events just for fundraising. They can also be free community-based events, because that is also one of the goals. But then some of the events that can raise funds is, you know, readathon, walkathon, singathon, golfathon. There are tons of different thons that you can do. There are galas, there are carnivals, and there are a lot of, you know, parties, themed parties that you can organize, that you can, you know, movies, for example, movie nights, etc. And you can design basically any event and make it into a fundraiser. There is a lot of amount of time and energy that goes into it, but it also is one of the biggest sources of raising funds. Indirect ones, there are, you know, recycling programs. You can recycle electronics, you can recycle old shoes, old clothes, etc. There are organizations who kind of facilitate this kind of recycling, and then they donate, you know, some kind of proceeds back to the school. And then I think everybody is familiar with Amazon Smile, or having restaurant night dine outs, etc., where these businesses, local restaurants, will again give back some proceeds from the sales back to the PTA. So you have a lot of different options here. And of course, you can be as creative as possible. One category that I haven't mentioned here, and it applies specifically to the PTAs, is grants and scholarships. So PTA organization has allocated certain grants, for example, to promote family engagement, to promote STEM or arts programs, etc. So if you're part of a PTA, you can find that information on their website. All right, so just an example of what are the different kind of events, both community as well as fundraising events you can have at your school. The PTA organization recommends that you must have 3 community events for every one fundraising event. Because again, as I mentioned, that the job of, or a role of PTO is not just to fundraise, but to bring the community together. So you may hold an event as a community event, but that doesn't mean you have to keep it completely free. You can charge money, or let's say you're holding a movie night, you can charge your families to pay for the ticket just to cover your costs, because there are costs involved in, you know, running a movie. You have movie licensing, you have setup, and there's so many things that go into it, and there could be costs involved. So if you're running an event that you're charging just to cover your costs and maybe just make a tiny bit of profit on that, that is not considered as a fundraiser event. If you're making, like, you know, thousands of dollars, then yes, it is definitely a fundraising event then. All right, so let's move on to our second topic, or the next topic rather, that is about communications. And this is my favorite topic because really, as I mentioned, that one, that I have a marketing background and communication is a big part of that. And second, I remember that when I became the PTO president for the very first time, this is the tool, or my skills in communication really saved me. I was completely new. I really didn't know what it meant to run a PTO organization. But one thing I knew is that whenever you're dealing with a large audience, like a big community, communication is a key to building relationships. And I started that early on, right in the summer when I took this role on. I knew that I had to do things so that people understood what we were doing, they understood the challenges, and they understood some of the accomplishments that we were, we had. So yes, regular and consistent communication is very, very important. And it's not just important that you send out, newsletters to, not newsletters, but send out emails asking for donations and stuff like that. But really what parents want, think from parents' perspective, what are they looking for, or what will make them relate to what you're doing is the common interest they have, that what value they get from you, and how it impacts or it helps their student at school. We all in our daily life, like when we're working as PTO, we get so kind of embroiled in a lot of different things. Like you have to manage the communication with teachers, with the principal, with the families, among the team themselves, right? So this becomes a really important aspect of kind of managing the organization in general. So when you're sending out information, any kind of information, make sure that it's kind of relatable, it is personal, and it is interesting. And one of the things that I kind of found is that really, injecting a little bit of humor, injecting some kind of funkiness really helps to catch people's attention. So just don't write everything full heavy text. Your newsletter should look nice, embedded with images, variety of information, like you have events and you have local news, you're showcasing your teachers or you're showcasing your volunteers and students. It kind of keeps things fresh and interesting. So for me personally, everything that I do, it has to matter. It has to be interesting. And because I think that is also a key to kind of attracting people's attention and make them listen to you. Again, share, don't just ask for help. So as I mentioned, there is a lot of information that you can share with families. When you have multiple kids, you're kind of torn between different kids, their activities and things like that. And they may not be on top of everything that you're doing. So just share things that are happening at your school and local news, local events. Don't just communicate with them when you need donations or when you need volunteers. And as I mentioned, start early. When you start your PTO, you typically would want to start just a month before your school starts. Introduce your PTO team, and talk about what you're going to accomplish, what your goals are, what kind of events you're trying to plan, what your budget goals look like. So do that, but then also during the school year, just constantly communicate with them. Many schools have multilingual families, so I know schools also attempt to share that, but keep that in mind that not everybody speaks English. I know a school, they have 7 different languages they speak. There are 7 different families that speak 7 different languages. And it is definitely a challenge to support all of them, but they do their best to use whatever tools they can to involve the entire population. And again, as I mentioned, when I was looking at the poll, there are a lot of paper-based communication tools that people are sending. Then there is also Facebook is becoming one of the most important communication tool. It works for some, it doesn't work for some, but whatever works for you, it's up to you. You have to experiment. And if your website is the key entry to all the information, make sure that it is always updated with the latest events and everything else. And don't forget to kind of put in all the information of your team members, how they can be contacted and their profiles and so on and so forth. So some of the tips is, again, as I mentioned, share not only like very, very specific things, but also share like local news, what's happening at the library. There is a board meeting at the school district, or there is this fun carnival in the, city carnival that's coming up. Those kind of things kind of, keep parents interested in reading a newsletter, and you'll get the maximum leadership from that. One of the other things is around, since fundraising is such a big aspect, is when you set the goals in the beginning of the school year about what your budget are, do share it with the parents. Do share them and say, hey, we are planning to raise $100,000 this year, and this is how we are planning to, use that money. And then, parents feel that, yes, that money is being used. You can also, for example, the school that I was part of a couple of years ago, the middle school, they used to run polls asking parents, hey, we are planning to spend this money. This is how we're planning to spend the money. Can you vote on that? And that would make parents feel, that they have their voice, and that money that they are donating is being used in the way that they want it to be used. It's not always possible to kind of, appease everyone and listen to everybody's requests, but it really, really helps. And again, recognition is the best way to, again, gain people's attention. So recognize your volunteers, thank them, recognize the students, spotlight the students' accomplishments in your newsletter. As far as tools go, for newsletters, MailChimp is the most common one I see. Also Constant Contact. They have free membership for a certain number of emails and certain number of members. Constant Contact has a special pricing for nonprofits. And then MailerLite, actually, I really like MailerLite because it's very easy to use. And it's pretty reasonable. I don't know what their free plan is like, but their other paid plan is like $10 a month, which I think it's worth it. It's very, very simple. Compared to MailChimp and Constant Contact, it's much simpler. And then you have other tools as I mentioned at the end of this presentation, there are 2 slides full of resources, so you can go and find all these different things there. All right. Let's talk about events then. So events take, I think, the maximum amount of energy and time on from the PTOs in terms of just planning it out. Every event seems like most of the events are like major events, and it requires a lot of planning and coordination, and just to make sure that it runs smoothly and that you have maximum participation. So really you need to plan it out as at the beginning of the school year. So you sit down with your board and you say, hey, these are our fundraising goals, or these are the goals, or these are the community events you want to hold this year. Make sure you put the schedule on and then get the approval before you go on to do anything else. Even if you're not a PTA, get an approval from your principal. Let's say that you are first time, prior to you, there would have been some kind of ground rules about having events you may not be aware of. And then I hear a lot of people get into all the planning details and they figure out, oh my gosh, my principal doesn't approve of this event. So make sure you get those events approved. And then do find committee chairs to head those. There's a lot of work to be done. And each of these events should have a committee chair dedicated just to managing that particular event. So you have an event chair, and then you have their job will be to get volunteers to help them out in running this entire planning and running the entire event. So make sure that you kind of have that in mind as well. So once you are coming closer to the event, so a couple of months before, there are things like you may need rentals, you may need professional vendors, auctioneers, whatever. Think about all the things, like create a checklist of all the things you need. And because some of them require like maybe 2 or 3 months in advance notice, and paying them a deposit, booking them, all those things need to be kept in mind. Special note about movies is that if you're planning to hold a movie night, you need a movie license. And that is because it is a copyright product. And you cannot just show movies just because you got it on Netflix or you got it somewhere else or you got a DVD. You have to acquire a movie license, and there are a couple of vendors. Again, those links are included in the resources slide you can find. Make sure that you have those all in place before you plan out those events. Go and find sponsors and partners. Your local businesses, your corporations are more than willing to donate, but then they do need a couple of months of advance notice. So share with them your nonprofit ID, your EIN, and a letter that goes and says, what are you looking for and how much do you need? And most of them will make some kind of donation, either in gift cards and cash, or even donate some items. And then just 1 month before, again, marketing and publicity is a big part of event planning, because you want to make sure that your event is a success. And how is your event a success? When you have a lot of people attending it. So you have to kind of think that you are basically in a marketing role. You have to start writing, generating newsletters, include them in newsletters, put them on a Facebook book, create maybe funny images, put them all the details, send out invitations and all that stuff. So you have to really keep on generating that buzz and excitement for the families to get excited about, say, hey, there is a carnival coming up, and then they have to get excited not only to participate, but also to volunteer for it. So make sure that you're prepared for doing all this kind of things. Again, once you're done with all those things, you definitely need a lot of volunteers. So again, that relationship building aspect is pretty important. The communication and everything else is important, because parents understand that, yes, this is all for my student, for all our school, and then it's my responsibility to volunteer, and they feel more, responsible for kind of doing that. So definitely do that. And you do have to send multiple reminders, because, not people, if you send out one reminder, they may not read it, they may not remember, whatever. And then you just close out everything, give your payments, process reimbursements, etc. Thank you, and reevaluate evaluate your event as to what went right and what went wrong. Insurance is a key part. A lot of people don't understand it. They kind of try to avoid it, but really highly recommended to have insurance, because you could, somebody could get hurt at the event. Somebody can come and there's an accident, or there is an embezzlement or whatever. You have to make sure that you're protected against all those. You are superhero, but even superheroes need insurance. So make sure that you get that. And there are links again at the end. We'll show you where to typically get the insurance from. All right, so I finally kind of wanted to talk a little bit of Oroola, because I think we're like a few minutes away, just wrapping it up. I think we're almost done. But Oroola, as I mentioned, my inspiration has been when I first started my PTA president or my role at my daughter's school, and I realized the challenges and the opportunities that I had to apply both my technology and marketing skills. And so that's what I'm doing right now, is trying to solve the problems of this fragmented communication. You have like papers, you have Google Docs, and you have a Google Calendar, and then you have something else for donation payments, and you have another tool for our website for signing up the volunteers, which really creates a big mess for the PTA volunteers. And your job is to engage the community, not to do data entry in Excel spreadsheets or to kind of run up to the parents to donate money and all that. So Oroola is really a platform, like an all-in-one platform, where you can have all these different tools in one place. So you can use it for communication, you can use it for your events and signups and all these other things. It also makes it very easy for the parents, because now they don't have to remember like 10 different passwords and log into 10 different websites. They have everything done in just a couple of clicks in one place. So that kind of helps increase the participation as well in your community. And if you're looking to pilot Oroola, please go to pta.oroola.com and sign up, and then you can get a school code to use Oroola for your school. It is 100% free, so absolutely no cost. All right, so I think that at the end of this, as I mentioned, there are slides with a lot of links in there. We will be publishing this slide out along with the video webinar, so that you can take a look and make use of these resources in there. Okay, so right now, let's go back and see if you still have some questions, or we did such a wonderful job that we have left you speechless. Let us see.
So there were a couple of questions submitted on the Q&A side of Oroola and the side of the Zoom webinar. Sorry, and if anybody else has any questions, please do feel free to add them here. One was just about whether we would be sharing this out after the webinar, and we will. And then the other question from Charlie, which is always I think the $24 million question, or whatever one might call it, is how does one build up numbers? Our PTO has been at 3 members for a few years, and they're offering babysitting and translation if needed. So I'm trying to do things to entice people. And it's I think there are probably 2 main questions that have probably plagued PTOs and PTAs for as long as they've been in existence. And one is how to build up, how to get the people, the volunteers, the involvement, and then the other one is is how best to raise funds. And hopefully we've given y'all some ideas on how to do that. I think and Neelam, you pipe in on this as well, but I think that to me, the best way to build up numbers is in that piece that Neelam was talking about in terms of communications, is figuring out what your community cares about, what would entice them to join. What is it that they don't want to come to the meetings? Is it that they don't feel like that they have time to volunteer? So you've got to make the PTO kind of come up in priority level for people, and it's all about targeting something that they really care about. And really and trying to figure that out. And that might be something that you can have a conversation with your principal about, and talk to some of the other parents, in your child's class, and say, okay, what is it? What is it that you feel your school needs? What is it that you feel that when talking to a specific person, what is it that you feel that you could contribute, and how can you help? And it's really about targeting the message and making sure it's of high value to the parents in your school.
Yes, Gail, you're absolutely on the point. And just to add to that, and back to my points, that really this is all about relationship building. Mm-hmm. How do you go about relationship building is through communication. So you don't have to just share or just invite our parents, but even before that, you start saying that, hey, these are our goals, these are our challenges, we need your help. And you have to constantly ping these people because, as I said, they got very divided attention. You know, multiple kids, they have a work, they have family, they have a lot of things. Many of them are single parents. So really your job, I would say that have a communications, leader, and make their job to have clear communication, use tools that make it easy to reach them out. Many times parents say, oh, there is a newsletter, I didn't know that. Oh, or you know what, it is too difficult to go and do this. And that is one solution. Again, I'm not trying to pitch this or sell this, but really the key is to make involvement easy. You know, if you're sending home like dozens of papers for every week for parents to sign up and other things, it becomes too burdensome after some time. Mm-hmm. So the answer to this is not just one point, yes, or a secret sauce, do this, but really start the relationship building earlier and keep on fine tuning, talk to your parents, make the communication interactive. Don't just tell them, ask them as well. And you will learn how to fine tune your organization based on what parents are looking for. Just one side tip note, a lot of PTOs have a complaint. Oh, you know what? My PTA meetings are completely empty room. I would say invite a speaker, which is, they are presenting on a topic that is interesting to parents, like how to help kids with homework, or in my school there, the Common Core was a big topic. So we used to invite speakers who would speak on topics of Common Core, and we would get a full house. So think about from parents' perspective what interests them, and that is what is going to help you. Sorry, that's a long-winded answer, but there is no short answer to this. And hopefully today's webinar will help you as well. All right, so moving on. So I'll just launch a quick exit poll and tell us if you think we did well or if we could have done something better. Please share that with us. So the poll is launched. Please take a few minutes. All right. This was just a beginner's introductory session, but we do plan to bring in more detailed topics around maybe just forming organizations or running your events, fundraising. We definitely have those, but yeah, so we are hoping that Oroola, our webinars could become source of information for you. Please let us know how you're doing, how we did today. And if you think there was something that we didn't cover today, please put it either in the Q&A or the chat window so that we understand that we could have done something better. All right, okay, so I'm gonna end the poll. And so looks like we did fairly well, not too bad, huh, Gail?
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm glad that we were helpful.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we have a raffle here. And the raffle is a book written by Heather Church and Caitlin Church. I know Heather Church is in one of the PTA groups, and I was chatting with her, and she was like, oh my gosh, I had to write this book because I learned so much from running this PTO leadership at my school, and I have so many things to share. Only a book will do justice to putting down all my experiences and learnings, and that's why she wrote this book. So we are hoping that this book will help you as well. So it is available on Amazon, but we are giving it for free today. We are giving out 2 copies. So let's see who is the lucky winner. All right, I'm just gonna randomly pick somebody from here. Gail, are you seeing my list of attendees here on the screen?
No.
Okay, no, that's what I wanted. So I could just randomly eeny, meeny, miny, mo and pick one person. All right, let's see. Who do I want to pick? I'm just going to close my eyes and just click on random link, and looks like that is our first winner is Heidi. Heidi, can you raise your hand if you're present? Still present. There you go. Congratulations, Heidi. You do get a book, Memoir of a PTO President, and I'll contact you separately to get your address so that I can mail it to you. All right. Let's turn this and get the second one. Second one is Trixie. Trixie, can you raise your hand if you are present? There we go. Congratulations, Trixie, to you too. So, all right, we are so excited. Again, we'll contact both of you to get your addresses so that we can mail this prize to you. But I just want to, we are a few minutes top about a time, but just wanted to take a moment to thank you. We really enjoyed having you guys and sharing with you what we learned as PTO leaders and in our experiences, that the challenges we face and how we solve them. And we really hope that you enjoyed as well. You took away at least some helpful takeaways from there that you could go and take and implement. As I mentioned, we will be sharing the video as well as the slide deck that you can share with the rest of your team. And if you did like your presentation today, we would really appreciate your recommendation to your friends to look at the webinar or even consider our platform. All right, with that, Gail, you just want to say your parting words too?
No, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And I like Neelam, I hope that this was helpful to you. And also feel free to share the recording and such when we get it out to others, in case you find that it would be helpful for them. Because we're all parents in this together, just trying to make the best of things for our students and for their schools. And it's wonderful to be part of a community where you can engage with others and try to learn tidbits from one another. So definitely please share this and share, I always encourage people, share ideas with other people in your area. You never know what you say might be a great little tidbit for somebody and help them out. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the Sunday, you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Others, and in case you find that it would be helpful for them, because we're all parents in this together, just trying to make the best of things for our students and for their schools. And it's wonderful to be part of a community where you can engage with others and try to learn tidbits from one another. So definitely please share this and share, I always encourage people, share ideas with other people in your area. You never know what you say might be a great little tidbit for somebody and help them out. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the Sunday, you all. Bye-bye.
everyone for joining us, and I like Neelam, I hope that this was helpful to you, and also feel free to share the recording and such when we get it out to others, in case you find that it would be helpful for them, because we're all parents in this together, just trying to make the best of things for our students and for their schools. And it's wonderful to be part of a community where you can engage with others and try to learn tidbits from one another. So definitely please share this, and share, I always encourage people, share ideas with other people in your area. You never know what you say might be a great little tidbit for somebody, and help them out. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the Sunday, you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.